Bellerin, Bellerin, it's a Bellerin.
Owned by Mustafi. Bellerin, brilliant! 2-2.
Hector Bellerin, Bellerin, Hector Bellerin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of Saved by the Bellerin, the Arsenal football podcast here on the Sports Talk Line Network. I am Raphael, joining you from the United States, and the usual suspects, or two of them anyway, coming to us from London. I'm going to go counterclockwise. To my left is Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, mate. How are we?
Always good to see you. And right below him is Ryan. Ryan, welcome back.
Hello, sir. Hope you're well.
Oh, well, we have a lot to talk about. And then, joining us on the pod is Freddie Paxton. Freddie, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Pleasure to be back, mate.
Okay. All right. So much to talk about in the Arsenal world, but we'd be remiss if we didn't touch even briefly on the craziest story in the entire football world. News from Barcelona that Lionel Messi has asked to be released or have his contract terminated. Seems he is once out of Barca. Ryan, you've been looking at this most closely. Is this posturing on his part? Is there some real fire to the smoke?
I think it's a bit of both. I think part of him doesn't want to leave Barca because obviously he is Mr. Barcelona, and I think he just wants to get the board out because they are terrible. They're Barcelona are probably one of the worst run clubs in the world, but maybe he does want a new challenge, and he doesn't see that happening at Barcelona because the rebuild is going to take a while. It's going to be expensive, which they don't really have the funds, especially in this current climate. So I don't know. Maybe Mikel should get on the phone.
Well, to that end, you saw a really interesting teaser from the from the Argentinian press that you might want to share with the viewers.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter that one of the most reliable Argentinian papers named Arsenal as one of the 8 clubs that could potentially sign Messi, which is quite ridiculous.
Well, we've been joking for days that Mikel can sweet talk anybody. You'd at least like to get him on the phone, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, I think actually a few years ago it was said that if he was going to go to anyone, the best football playing team was Arsenal. I think that was said. I might have just made that completely up, but who knows? I thought I read it somewhere, so we'll see.
All right, well, let's stay with the theme. Let's stay with the topic of Mikel Arteta's pull, because it's becoming obvious very quickly in his tenure as Arsenal's manager that he has legitimate pull. Freddie, we're going to bring you in. You've been in contact with Gabriel Magalhaes' agent. You made a tweet yesterday that kind of spoke to that Arteta's persuasiveness.
Yeah, I think it's no secret how well he's come across since he's joined the club, both to the people that were already there and also to people that have joined since. I think what I would say as well is that Edu was a big part of this as well. I think that's who Guilherme, which is Gabriel's agent, was most glowing about. I think it was the contact with Edu. The contact would have been initiated by Edu. He would have been the one that set everything up, and Arteta's kind of on hand then to do his bit as well. And obviously they worked well together as a team. But they're both charismatic guys. They've obviously both got a great love for the club, and they know the right things to say. And they've obviously got a very strong picture in their head of the way they see the future going, and they're able to sell it well. So when you've got people that can do that on your side at the club, then it's always going to be easier to attract players to come in, and that's exactly what's happened.
All right. I'm going to ask you to expand a quote in your tweet. Gabriel saying Arsenal was not the most lucrative offer. There were other factors, and that really resonated with the fans. Everybody seemed to love it. It was retweeted. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't go into too many details, obviously, about other clubs that were interested. My interest didn't lie in which other clubs were interested. It was more just in, whether the deal was done with Arsenal. And for days, he couldn't give too much away, of course. as you will have seen from my tweets, if you follow me, it was mainly him telling me it's not done yet, not done yet, not done yet. But when he was able to finally say, look, yeah, it's done, barring the announcement. The one thing that he really wanted to convey was that this was not the most financially lucrative offer out of all the ones that he received, but it was the project and the contact directly with Edu and Arteta that convinced him. So it was more the project. He's obviously a young guy. He wants to develop. So it's important for him to go to a club where he feels like he can do that. He's got a manager that now that he feels like can help him do that. And also the Brazilian connection with Edu would have been helpful. You know, we've got experienced Brazilian players at the club like Willian and David Luiz as well, which I'm sure would have been part of Edu's pitch. And it all culminated, I guess, in a really attractive offer for the player. So I'm really looking forward now to get the ball rolling with him officially in an Arsenal shirt whenever they decide to announce it.
All right, it seems at this point really is all but the announcement, right? Introducing him holding the shirt. The club is back on the pitch today. Sam, you got to see a little bit of the match with MK Dons, with the friendly at MK Dons. I don't want to dwell too much on the Aubameyang non-extension, which hasn't been announced yet. It seems to be dragging out. But he played today. The club is pitching him. You know, let's move to the game itself. He played centrally. Did we get any tips of where he fits in Arteta's plans in 2021 as opposed to 1920?
Yeah. When I was watching the game, I did put into the group to say what formation were we playing in, especially in the first half, because it seemed that we was playing the 3-4-3, where Aubameyang was actually still on the left-hand side, but on the narrow. And it seemed that it was Maitland-Niles that was the furthest wide, so to speak. But ultimately, what people got to realise, we had some very good passages of play in the first half. I just think that the players have literally just come back into pre-season. It's getting minutes in the legs, getting the stamina back in. We've got Liverpool coming up on Saturday, so again, it's all about fitness. The result was very pleasing. Obviously, if people haven't seen that yet, I won't spoil that. But ultimately, it's a good run out for a few first team members. Elneny was back in the middle of the midfield. For me personally, it showed a bit of his limitations, but ultimately, I don't see a future for him here. Although some people do see that there could be a road back into the first team for Elneny. Obviously, with the squad being needed, it's going to be needing the big squads. But ultimately, looking at reports that have come out this week, if we can shift him and bring some of them in, then we've upgraded and it's perfect for us, really.
All right. Some players, again, Elneny, a guy who we don't expect to be in the lineup or even on the squad when it starts. Ryan, we got to see the unveiling today of a player we've been waiting for forever. That's William Saliba. Your first chance. What's your first impressions of him in an Arsenal uniform?
I don't want to overhype the kid or go too far, but he's God tier. He's the best thing since Tony Adams. He was unbelievable. As I said, I don't want to overhype him or anything. Put too much pressure on the kid's shoulders. I can't help it. But the way he moved out of defence with the ball, so calm, composed, it looked like he had played for Arsenal for a number of years, and it was so good to watch one of our centre backs draw a attacker close and make the right pass. And he did it quite often. And for Nketiah's goal, he got the ball, drove forward, played a simple pass to Cedric, and we're through on goal. And he was really, really good. He's surprisingly quick as well. I didn't realise how quick he actually was, but he's got quite a bit of pace behind him as well.
All
Helps he's
right.
quite tall.
He is
Too.
6'4", right?
Yeah.
We see him in the training photos, and he just towers above players who we know are tall.
Yeah.
Freddie, I'm going to bring you back to Gabriel and William Saliba. You know, we've discussed it, but we're this close now to seeing both of those youngsters on the pitch. One is 22, one is 19. You know, if we look at the back line, Tierney is 23, Hector is 25, Bernd Leno's 27. Which is young in keeper years. They're set up for a while if they want to leave them alone and just let them develop in the way of the old Arsenal backlines of lore.
For sure, it's promising for the future. If you can keep that group together, they're going to have a lot of years now to play together, to get to know each other, and to build a real partnership. I think we've seen with defences of successful teams in the past, that's key. You know, it takes a few seasons of really working on a system together and getting things right. They will make mistakes. Like you said, they're young. Especially the two centre backs, you know, combined age of 41. So it's like, you know, David Luiz isn't far off that himself. So it's handy as well to have players like Luiz that I'm sure will start the season, because Gabriel's going to be a little bit behind now with the quarantine and everything. So who knows what the partnership will be? Maybe Saliba and Luiz, but that experience is going to be really handy to have to guide them. Like I said, they will make mistakes, they will cost us points, but I think Arsene Wenger probably once said, what was it? That you'd rather have young players that you know are going to turn into great players and allow them to develop and then cost you points, rather than have, you know, unreliable older players or players that are too old. So I think, yeah, definitely positive signs for the future, and that it's going to take them time, but it's something to be excited about.
And we've had our fill of the older players making mistakes. So I think, yes, I think we're all fit for that. But, you know, expanding on what Ryan was saying about Saliba being able to make the unusual compared to his Arsenal peers, with Gabriel, again, even if if these guys do make mistakes, what can he add? I mean, he seems to fit that profile. I think Sam was talking about it, that Arteta has a physical and developmental profile. He likes tall, athletic guys, really good with the ball on their feet. We saw that with Saliba. Gabriel certainly teases that. How does this change? Does this change? Or is he just going to, what he wants to do better? Or does this really give him opportunities this coming season that we didn't see before, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, like you said, the ability to, you know, be comfortable with the ball at your feet and to use it well is so important. Everyone thinks of that as kind of a midfielder's job, or, you know, wide players, but it's equally as important to have centre backs who are able to use the ball effectively and help you build from the back. Something that we've really struggled with this season, and that will definitely be a big advantage going forward. I think as well, if you look back to some of the more successful centre backs we've had in recent years, probably the best overall, as it might not be what people want to hear, some people will disagree, but Laurent Koscielny was probably the best that we've had, if you're thinking back to sort of Emirates era, and he sort of fit that profile. All right, not the tallest, but he was decent in the air, he was athletic, he was quick, he was strong as well, some might say unexpectedly strong, but that's what you need in the Premier League. If you only have to look at the best centre-backs in the league right now, and that's the sort of attributes that they've got. And so Arteta's obviously looked at these players and thought, look, they're young, they've got years ahead of them, but they also fit the right profile in terms of being robust enough to deal with the league. They've got pace, and they're good with the ball at the feet. And we want to become a team that's good with the ball again. We've not been that for a while now. So a team that can build from the back, play attractive football, beat a press, and get back to maybe the Arsenal that we were used to seeing a few years ago.
All right, Sam, expanding on that, you know, I'm going to kick a question to you that Ryan and I were discussing. You know, when we look at these youngsters, you look at the youth, the athleticism, the potential, and really the delivery. I mean, we can look at Kieran Tierney and how well he performed for Arsenal, really right out of the box. As soon as he was healthy, he was producing at a very high level. Assuming these five gentlemen are fit, when was the last time Arsenal had a back line with that much, I hate using the word potential, but let's talk about it, with that capability, let's say?
I know Ryan said it was when we had, was it Clichy, Koscielny and...
Sonia, I believe.
Yeah, Sanya. But I'd go further back. I would say when we had Ashley Cole, Torre, Campbell and Loren, because that back four literally had everything that you needed. And literally in terms of it being solid, they could do that. If they needed to mix it up, they can do it. If they needed to play out from the back, again, they can do that. Was they bullied? No. Was they bullied in the air at set pieces? No. I can see a lot of similarities in the type of profiles that we've got now in terms of that back four then. But if you ask me, where's the weak link in this back four compared to that one, I'd probably say it would be Bellerin. But for what we need right now, it's an absolutely superb back four.
Let's stay with capabilities. Let's stay with future. Let's stay with cohesion. You have the thing in a vacuum, right? We can look at them and say they're improving Arsenal, but we play in the Prem and we're playing against other clubs. And it's interesting that a lot of the main competitors, look, a lot of the clubs that finished immediately ahead of Arsenal on the table are also shopping for the same kind of player. You know, if you look at City, you look at Chelsea, you look at United, you look at Spurs, they're all looking to improve central defense. Now, having Saliba on the pitch now, getting him in, getting him off loan, now having Gabriel added position Arsenal relative to those other four. Have they drawn even? Does this give them the potential to catch these clubs? I think that everybody hopes that, but I mean, seeing what they've done so far, what they're trying to do and what Arsenal has accomplished, do they have an early, does Arsenal have an early edge in that respect?
I would say yes. I think that it definitely gives the jump over Chelsea as they stand at this present time, over Man United as well. Obviously, Liverpool's the big one that everyone's going to look to in terms of their centre-backs. Potential, it's got the potential to be better. But right now, I'd possibly put them just underneath. City, Koulibaly, dependent on where you read. But if they were to get him, then yes, that would make their centre-back partnership of Laporte and Koulibaly a very dominating pairing. But I think that with Saliba and Gabriel, we've definitely right in the mix in terms of centre-back pairings. And I would probably put us as second in terms of the best centre-back pairing. People may disagree with that, but that's where I'll put it, in my opinion.
Oh, that's a bold statement. Certainly comparing it to what we saw a year ago, or certainly the years just prior to that, wherever it rises the club, I think we'll take it. Ryan, getting back to you, let's move forward a little bit. Still a lot of churn, a lot of deals being discussed. A couple of weeks ago when we were waiting for Champions League, we were saying we pinpointed the 23rd as a day to look because that's when Philippe Coutinho's Champions League was going to be done. It looks like he might be going back to Barcelona, especially with the uncertainty over Leo Messi. The Aouar deal seems to that's gone quiet. Obviously, his season just ended. He's gone on holiday, but some speculation that he might go to Juve. But again, we heard yesterday nothing concrete there. Is there a plan C? What does Arsenal look to if both of those options are stymied? They need an attacking mid.
Yeah. Maybe. Do they? I think they might need a number 8. Definitely need a number 8. I'm not sure if Mikel Arteta is going to go down a route of a number 10 per se. But we definitely need a midfielder that can take the ball on the back foot and turn quickly into midfield. Because watching Granit Xhaka and Mohamed El Nene today, it was painful watching them trying to turn in midfield. It's like trying to turn a boat. So yeah, I saw some links to Thiago Alcantara. He would improve us drastically. Obviously, you mentioned Aouar as well, which if we could get both of them, or maybe pushing the boat out a little bit too much there, but if we could get both of them and play him in the mid with someone holding and them two on either side, I think that would be unreal. But yeah, definitely need a attacking, forward-thinking midfielder. So I don't know. Coutinho looks like he's going back to Barca. Koeman says he counts on him for next season, but you just never know with Barcelona. They could just sell all of their team. So we're not really sure if Coutinho is going to carry on there. There was a report today from Marca that said Coutinho prefers to go back to Premier League rather than go back to Barca. So we'll see. But the links I would look at concretely are the Thiago links. See if we can get. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He obviously wants to leave Bayern, so he's pretty cheap. 24 million, I think I saw 23 million. He's definitely one that we could snatch if Liverpool don't actually go for him.
Keep the name Dani Ceballos in the discussion. Again, it's kind of on again, off again. Mikel wants to keep him, clearly. How much he has persuasion with the player, but how much persuasion would he or Edu have with Real Madrid at this point?
I think it all depends on how Madrid see their midfield going next season. So obviously they got dumped out of the Champions League by City. They got dominated in midfield. And I think you actually pointed me to a report that said they was looking at keeping Ceballos and Odegaard there. So I think we might have to see what Zidane wants. If Zidane doesn't want him, I think he'll come back. Then it also depends on us. So how much is he going to cost? If it's worth it for us to keep him on loan for another season and then purchase him permanently, I think we should definitely look into it. Definitely try and bring him back, because after the restart, he was probably our most consistent performer throughout them 10 games, especially in the final as well. He really stepped up in the final. So, yeah, definitely look into bringing him back.
It sounds like he wants to come back. So you have to factor that into the equation. Freddie, you get this pass. It seems like every week and for months upon, so we reach the point in the show, and sometimes we just say his name. We just say Thomas Partey, and we kind of like nod. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more than that. We're at the point, again, Atletico Madrid season's over. He's at that crossroads that everybody is expecting, where he has to choose. Arsenal's name continues to be linked with him. Do you have anything to add to this merry-go-round of rumor? You know, we know the base facts of the situation. Is he looking to move, to your knowledge? Is he, Arsenal? There's some stories out there that he's got 1 foot in Arsenal's camp and he's just leaning over with the second one. But what can you tell us about this always intriguing but frustrating rumor?
Listen, I find it surprising when I see a lot from certain accounts, not so much journalists, but people that claim to have knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes with Thomas, which they might do. But I do find it surprising when they seem to have all this information, because I know for sure that him and his camp have been extremely tight-lipped. They haven't wanted to give too much away. There was a lot of talk a few months ago that was way premature. I think I said it at the time. It was obvious that nothing was going to happen, at least until their Champions League campaign was over, which obviously it has been now for a little while. Look, the thing with Thomas is he's 27 years old now, and he's at that stage in their career. The next contract that he signs is going to be a 4 or 5 year deal. It takes him to past 30 years old. So that's why he's been looking for certain things from Atletico Madrid that they've not been able to commit to, and he's felt undervalued. So there is that points towards an exit for him. Obviously, there was talk last summer about him potentially being interested in a move to Arsenal. Didn't happen. This season hasn't been so great for the club. He's had a few options on the table, and I suppose he's wanted to think about all of those and what the future might look like for him. I'm almost 100% sure that Arsenal will be gunning for him as their top priority now. That's already been reliably reported by people that have good links at the club, like David Ornstein and the rest of it. But that doesn't guarantee anything. So I don't doubt that his wage demands are going to be quite big because, like I said, it's a really important stage of his career, important age, and an important contract. So he will be looking for a lot, as any player that moves to the Premier League would be, especially one of his pedigree. So if Arsenal feel that they can match his wage demands and they can either meet the release clause that he's got, or they can persuade Atletico to let him go for anything less, then maybe it could happen. But until then, I'm sure that there will be other teams that have an interest. Atletico will still be really keen to keep him. So I don't think anything's decided yet. And like with any transfer, I know it's a cliche, but until something's actually signed or until something's even, nearly signed, there's always a lot of room for manoeuvre. So I would encourage people not to get too excited about that. But yeah, definitely there's an interest there. There's no secret.
Now, part of the story, there's kind of this push-pull that he wants to go. And as you said, he wants, and clearly I think no one would argue that he doesn't deserve a massive raise. He's 27. This really is probably his last big chance to cash in his career. It seems, again, looking at, and I don't know if the figures are correct. They're quite massive, but it does seem that there's a sense that he's trying to catch up for lost wages in past years when he was playing beyond his wage. But assess the risk. I mean, there is a risk of that if you pay him what he wants. Would you be paying partly for past performance, or is he still at the point now where he's gonna, whatever you pay him, he's gonna be good for it?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think they'll be thinking too much about what he's shown in previous years, because I think Thomas has been a slightly late bloomer. Look, he's always been a good player, and a lot of teams have always had their eye on him, but it's taken him a while to really assert himself as the player that he is now, a really big driving force in Atletico's midfield, and a player that's coveted now by a lot of the top teams. So I think it's warranted what he's asking for a big wage, because the performances that he's put in the last couple of years, you've seen last couple 1 or 2 seasons how important that he's been for them. But yeah, I think as well, he'll be looking at Arsenal and saying, well, look, I'm at a club that's got that's Champions League football's been playing in the Champions League. You guys aren't in the Champions League. You're in the Europa League, and you didn't even finish in the league position to get there. So if you want me to join you, you're going to have to make me an offer that's attractive, because look, Arsenal is a great club. Obviously, I'm going to be biased on that, but as we said about Gabriel, big pulling power, good project, but you're still going to have to make these players the right offer. Thomas is someone who I think just had his head down for the last couple of years. I've heard reliably from people that know him that he's very much, never really been too focused on money, just wants to make sure that he had got his chances in the first team, and when he got them, he would take them. I think now it's that time where he's in a sort of one of the first names on the team sheet for a little while now. So now he's thinking in a different mindset. Like, look, I've got to try and get the sort of contract that I deserve based on what I've shown through all my hard work. So I think it's only fair. Like you said, I don't know if those figures that have been thrown around, 200 grand a week, if they're accurate. I really don't know. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it is high. But yeah, if Arsenal feel that they can do it, then I'm sure they will. They've got a lot of other financial commitments with Aubameyang's contract and the rest of it. So let's see.
Okay, Sam, a lot of what they can pay for Thomas Partey and what they do pay him once, assuming he arrives, we're all wishful thinking on that respect, has a lot to do with who goes out. Commented today, lineup was announced. We saw El Neni out on the pitch. Again, a gentleman we don't expect to make the team this year, but 3 intriguing names. I mean, some fans assume would leave, but 1 or 2 eyebrow raisers: Lacazette, Guendouzi, Torreira, and Bellerin not in the team sheet. Hector's name has popped up in probably the last 24, 36 hours, possible outgoing. Does that surprise you? Are these omissions a matter of the club just, protecting itself?
Bellerin's a interesting one, because if you believe the reports that come out last night, I think they was coming out from France, saying that Arsenal's offered him to Paris Saint-Germain. to me, that's a bit baffling because ultimately, if you're going to be looking at selling Bellerin, you're going to need to be getting another right back in because come back from Botcham and now he's gone off on loan to Cardiff. So that's one of your options gone. Potentially Maitland-Niles is going off to Wolves. So that's another cover gone. So ultimately, we're going to be leaving ourselves with Cedric. So are you going to be brave enough and put Cedric into the first team? Today, I know obviously he's been injured previously. There's a lot of rust there, but to me, he didn't look too convincing. And I would have reservations as him being the first choice right back at the club. So do we go out and go and get a younger fullback, or do we promote from within in the academy? But ultimately, the players that have been left out today, Ryan was saying earlier that they're quarantining, hence why they weren't there today. So
Possible.
There's, as you say, there's a lot of rumour around the players mentioned. I don't expect to see Guendouzi back at the club at all in any capacity this season. As we know, there's a market for Lucas Torreira, which we discussed on the pod last week. I believe there will be a market for Lacazette as well. So it purely comes down to what the club's plans are for them players and where they see themselves fitting into the club moving forward. Because with Lacazette, you've got to think as well, he's now into his second to last year. It comes into that realms of possibility of, do we offer him a new contract, or it's got to the point now where we would have to sell him, otherwise we're going to be losing market value on him. But ultimately, again, I think it's a lot of discussions are going to be had at the club, or had been at the club, with these players to outline their futures. So I think we can probably see a lot more links in the media this week, start of next.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to ask you to touch on something that Sam just raised, because another name that I didn't mention when I brought up the outgoings to him was Sead Kolasinac. But there are rumors that he has Finn at the back, especially if Bellerin is outgoing. If he is really being offered, that the only certainty that they have at left back and right back right now are Tierney and Cedric, and both of those gentlemen have had a little injury problems. Have you heard of any names that are in the mix that could bolster those positions, or I mean, that seems like a risky move on Mikel's part?
Yeah, there's a few names that have been bandied around. Reguilon from Real Madrid, who we've mentioned on previous pods. You got I can't pronounce his name properly, but he spent the rest of the season at Bayern on loan from Real Madrid. Orizola. I hope I haven't butchered his name, but he looked pretty good whenever I've seen him. And obviously you got the two lads at Norwich, Jamal Lewis and Max Aarons, who are also pretty decent. Could be got for a good price, because Liverpool did want Jamal Lewis as a backup to Andy Robertson. And you know how good their recruitment is, so he could be a good backup option. There's also Youssef Attal at Nice, who's a very, very good right back. So there's quite a few options that we could get if we sold Kolasinac and Bellerin. If we can get a good price for both of them and reinvest it into the fullback position for cheaper, I think that would be worthwhile.
And again, with both of those positions you're looking at, although Hector's not that old, he's 25, Kolasinac is older, bringing in more youth. You're taking a back line that's already really, really young and making it ridiculously young. Would that give you any qualms going into the season? Or have they just shown so much quality that you're okay, just going to let them grow?
I don't have any qualms about it, because I think that's the type of profile Mikel Arteta wants now, is youth. we're blended with a little bit of experience, as you see with Pablo Mari, David Luiz, Willian, Aubameyang, Xhaka, all these type of players. I don't think we need that much more experience because we don't want to be left towards the end of the season and be completely gassed. Because that's what happened under Emery. We had hardly any youth players, or younger players, I should say. And by the end of the season, all of our players were dead on their feet. So I wouldn't mind having a few younger players who can grow into their positions. Because I think Max Aarons, who me and Sam talk about quite often as being a right back who we see as better than Bellerin. I know it's a bit of a push, but he could be. And I know it's ifs, buts, and maybes, but he would be cheaper and younger than Cedric. You could really push Cedric for that starting position. We mentioned it in the group quite often. Is Reguilon from Real Madrid. He's been unbelievable for Sevilla. He's gone all the way through their European campaign, their league season. So as much as these guys are young, they still have the necessary games under their belt to be experienced, young but experienced, if that makes sense, because they got their appearances, matches under their belt. So I wouldn't have any problems.
Okay, Freddie, let's stay with the back line. We haven't talked about keeper very much, but there's probably going to be a fight for the position because obviously, Bernd Leno had a really good season, and he's one of the players of the year for the club as they count down to Aubameyang. I think he was second. If he wasn't, he was third. My memory's a bit hazy, but he had a very strong season, and we were all lamenting his injury. We thought the season was over. Then here comes Emi Martinez and has a dazzling run in, earned himself a position, won a cup, has earned himself a shot at fighting for the starting position. Seems like a nice problem to have, though. We've been discussing it on offsite, but if it comes to it that Martinez has to go out in the market, Arsenal, looking at selling players like Niles, selling players maybe like Bellerin, trying to recoup some money to go for big buys. This is kind of it's almost like a lottery ticket that they're going to cash in.
Yeah, I really, if you were to ask me who to choose between the two of them, it would be almost impossible for me to answer. So I sympathise with Mikel on the decision that he's got to make. I think the thing with Martinez is that he said, look, if I'm not going to be the number one goalkeeper, I'm not here to be a backup anymore, so I would have to look to leave. But you have to think about the discussion that he's going to have with Arteta. Is Arteta going to be able to tell him categorically you're going to be the number one? Well, you can never tell any goalkeeper that, rarely, when you've got two good ones at a club. Is he going to tell him categorically, you're not going to be my number one, you should look for another club? No way. I really can't see us getting to the point where we need to sell Martinez. I don't think it's something that we should entertain. I think if you're going to get excited about the future of Arsenal and the squad that we're building and the players that we've got and the squad depth that we're starting to look like we might have with the players that we've brought in and the players that we might be looking to bring in, to already start talking about then reducing that by selling a player that's done really well, I think is doesn't make sense. But also, we all watch football enough to know that it changes quickly and there's games every couple of days. So you will have injuries, whether it to be outfield or keepers. And you've got competitions constantly where keepers are going to be rotated. So both of them are going to get a lot of games if they're both fit. And, going into the new season, probably Martinez feels like he did easily enough to start as number one. And Leno knows probably he's got a fight on his hands. So I think it's healthy competition, and I really wouldn't entertain the idea of selling either of them.
All right. Give it to you two gentlemen, just very quickly, Sam and then Ryan. Take the situation that Freddie proposed, that Arsenal keeps them, which sound, as you said, injuries happen. We never expected Leno's injury, and the club didn't miss a beat when he went down. How do you I'll start with you, Sam. If you're keeping two guys and they're capable, how do you keep them happy? How do you parcel out games, or do you rotate them? Do you designate one guy as for the season, one guy's for the cup? How do you keep them engaged and bought in, if you will?
I think a lot of it is going to be that what happens on the training pitch. If you want to be that number one, you need to do better than the other guy that you're training against. So you're going to have to actively make Mikel make that decision as to, I've done better than him on the training pitch. I deserve to be that number one. So, yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be coming down to what happens on the training pitch. But if you're going to say start in the season, I think it's going to be Leno. But then cup games, Martinez. But again, as Freddie said, it changes very quickly. It might. I don't see it being one in for one game, one in for another. It's just purely what happens on the day. But again, I think as well, it depends a lot on the opposition and the analysis that comes back from the team and what Mikel would have done himself.
All right, Ryan, you've been in. Sam, have you been in locker rooms? You've seen this. Is this a potential problem, or is this something Mikel can manage? Can he keep everybody happy, in your opinion?
I think he can keep everyone happy. I think if he just says to him, look, I'm leaving you two to fight out the best one, the one that trains the best, I'm going to pick. Then it brings out healthy competition, makes them both better than what they were. As previously mentioned, competition breeds better results. You have competition for places. No one can sit on their laurels. There, no one can come into training ground. Oh yeah, I'm the top dog. No. You've got someone that's chasing you, pushing you to be better. You have to perform every training session, every match. Otherwise, you're dropped. And it's exactly what happened with Lacazette. I mentioned this when Nketiah came back. I said he's going to push Lacazette all the way because he's hungry for it. And you see Lacazette gets dropped, Nketiah's on the pitch. So it can happen as long as he can keep that balance of trying not to piss one or the other off. I think Mikel Arteta can keep them both happy.
All right, we're in injury time with the pod, so we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. Freddie, we talked about Aubameyang being back. He still hasn't signed the extension. This is the part where we kind of kick about the idea. What do you expect by the next pod when we come back in 48 hours? Will we finally have a signing, in your opinion, come Thursday?
If you want me to keep it short and sweet,
well, you can make long and sweet as long as it's sweet, right? We're exhausted.
Yeah, I look. It's in Arsenal's hands when they announce things. I don't know anything about that. But I would like to say yes because I think everybody knows it's all but done. So if the club want to announce it, then great, and I hope they do this week. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it like that.
Okay, all right, Sam. It seems every day there's a handful of players outgoing. We already mentioned 6 possible outgoings. Just off today: El Nene, Lacazette, Torreira, Maitland-Niles, Guendouzi, Hector, and there's probably one. We haven't talked about Holding. We haven't talked about Chambers. I'm up to 8 now. I'm running out of fingers. Do you expect anybody out in the next 48 hours? And do you think some of these potential moves that we keep talking about are really dependent on getting 2 or 3 of these guys out the door?
I think the most likely out the door, as it stands at the moment, is Maitland-Niles. But again, that could break down on personal terms, maybe. Socrates is another one that's been rumoured to be out the door. Napoli and Roma again. Personally, I don't think that our incomings are dependent on outgoings. As we've stated previously, we can make a lot of money through outgoings. But as it stands at the moment, I don't believe that our incomings are purely dependent on the outgoings.
Okay. And Ryan, I'm going to give you a term that's occurred to me when I was listing all those names. Also for the incomings, for Mikel Arteta, we're seeing real ruthless side of this guy. He knows the club he wants, and he also knows the club he doesn't want. And he's making that pretty plain, it seems. Do you expect a quick move out? It seems that we're looking at a big move out in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's a major overhaul coming. Whether it's all done this summer or it takes a couple of summers, but it's coming. And I said jokingly the other day to someone that it's the second coming of Arsene Wenger, because Arteta is ruthless. Like, there's going to be some unpopular sales, players we don't want to leave but are going to, like Torreira, Maitland-Niles, Rob Holding. These are not the sort of players we would like to leave, but to get to the next level, we have to improve in that area. And Arteta's going to do it. Arteta is going to sacrifice these players to bring in who he wants and how he wants Arsenal to look, how they play, because we've lost that sense of beautiful football, and Arteta's slowly bringing it back where people feared playing us, and it's going to come back, and Arteta is that man.
All right, so that brings us to the close. Again, I wish we had more news to offer you, but it does look like Gabriel is all but the signing, all but the holding of the shirt. So we have that to hang on to. Again, we want to welcome Freddie Paxton to the pod and bring it to a close. Before we leave, though, one housekeeping point for all of us at Sports Talk Line and Saved by the Bellerin. You can help us grow by looking down at that little button right below. If you're watching on YouTube, the subscribe button, hit that. That's a plug for us. We've got a lot of changes, a lot of features that we have coming up in the next few weeks. I don't want to jam them into the last minute of the pod, but obviously we've teased that we're going to have a deadline day show. That's something to look forward to. More details as they come up. Where wheels are spinning here. Things are in motion, and we're all excited about the team, or we're excited about the pod. So we want to thank you for coming on the journey with us. So for me, Rafael, for Sam, for Ryan, and for Freddie, I want to bid you all a good night, and we'll see you again in 48 hours, hopefully with more good Arsenal news.